Alright guys, what's going on? Welcome back. It is episode number 13 of the Newcastle United career mode, coming on the back of our halfway point being reached in the season as you remain top of the table, and on the back of the dramatic 2-goal comeback against Leicester at St James's, we are still undefeated. You know, I've said this before, like, there's so many things I've done within FIFA career mode, with all the saves I've done, all the seasons I've had. But I don't ever recall having an undefeated league season. Like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there was a year where I had one, but I can't remember having done that before. I can't remember having an undefeated Premier League season before. So we've got a genuine chance to make some Jocks history, if you will, within this save this season. Right now, still undefeated at the halfway point. Now, of course, there's a whole other half to play. You know that cliche. Football is a game of two halves. So anyway, yeah, first game was Chelsea, as we only stay top of the table and also remain undefeated as well. Goodness gracious, I do not know how I did not win this game, man. Seriously, I took the lead in the first half and I dominated most of the game. Edouard Mendy made some incredible saves for Chelsea, and in the end, it was two of those players that have been sold. Mendy and Pulisic are the reasons why I didn't win that game there. Yeah, the American, who's also now joined AC Milan, chipped over Nick Pope to give Chelsea the leveller in a 1-1 draw. I have to say, you know, I said before, like, my best mate's a Chelsea fan, so we, talk about football all the time, and we've been talking about it. For Chelsea to have had the clear out they've had this summer, I mean, there were so many talks about, how are they going to be able to get rid of all of these players? The squad is too thick. How are they going to be able to trim it down? How are they going to sell so many players on high wages? Like, seriously, I understand they've undersold players in terms of market valuation. What did Pulisic go for to Milan? Was it £20 million? When you consider what he went for a few years ago from Dortmund, I mean, it's a pretty cheap deal, isn't it? Let's be honest here. But when you look at the bigger picture and you look at the players that are on such high contracts that have now gone, Koulibaly after 1 year, Edouard Mendy who had really struggled to get his form back, N'Golo Kante obviously expiring. To be fair to Chelsea, with those players on ridiculously high wages, and obviously others as well. Granted, the transfer fees might be quite small in the grand scheme of things. No one's going to deny that, really. But I think you've got to look at the bigger picture here, which is that what Chelsea didn't want to do is hold on to those players if they weren't able to get what they would perceive to be their true valuation and commit to spending a ridiculously high wage. I feel as though they probably looked at Manchester United and thought about certain players that they'd had that were coming towards the end of the contracts and then were given new deals. I mean, we can talk about David De Gea, for example, on a ridiculous weekly wage. He's now gone. I mean, Phil Jones is always one of the strangest ones to me. Why he was kept there, I really do not know. Obviously, now he's also been released as well. But I think they probably looked at Manchester United and thought, right, this is a club who saw those players as assets, especially under Woodward, and said, well, we might as well just give them new deals. If they're expiring in 6 months to a year, for example, we'll keep them here for another 2 years and hope that eventually they'll recapture form and then we'll sell them on for what would be close to their perceived market valuation. Chelsea, I feel as they probably looked at that model under Ed Woodward and thought, we don't want to do the same thing here. Listen, our squad is far too thick and there's a lot of players on wage they probably don't really justify. I've been seeing that Chelsea have said to Aubameyang and Lukaku, just don't return to training. Don't return to training. Don't report back to the club. You are not coming back. We will get you out of the club, even if it is for a very, very cheap deal. And to be fair to Chelsea, I think that there's this thing, like with sunk cost, the sunk cost fallacy, where certain clubs, and I'm not ragging on Manchester United here, but Manchester United were definitely guilty of this a few years ago under Ed Woodward. But there are certain clubs who do kind of buy into that philosophy of like, well, this is a player that is worth something, and it's not worth selling unless it gets close to that valuation. But I think people need to remember that, if they are committing to a massive weekly wage, we're talking millions upon millions of pounds year after year for one player, let alone multiple. So if you can get rid of those players for, again, a small fee, granted, yes, but also save on those wages too, I think a lot of clubs sort of need to adopt the philosophy that Chelsea are kind of seen within this summer. It is better to, basically trim the squad, reduce the wage bill, and get a small fee as well, than it is to hold on to what is rapidly depreciating asset just because you don't want to sell it for under market valuation. Imagine if Koulibaly, for example, was kept. Koulibaly depreciating asset after just 1 year. I mean, they'd be paying millions upon millions upon millions of pounds for this one player, let alone multiple, in his 30s. To me, I see Chelsea have been catching a few strays here and there for the fact they have been selling these players for very, very cheap deals. Granted, I'm not going to deny that for a majority of these players, they are undervaluation deals. But to be fair, I think they've made the right call. I really do. I think that just making sure these players leave for, again, even if it is undervaluation, even if they make a loss, for example, Koulibaly, I think they've made like a £15 million loss in him after 1 year, but think about the money and the millions you're saving in the long term by not committing to paying those full wages for the full, what would have been a 4 or 5 year contract I think Koulibaly signed at the start of last season. Anyway, back to business here in the episode. Obviously, you would have seen us beat Southampton in the following game at St Mary's and then have to come from behind to beat West Brom. That was a really tough game. The FA Cup third round against the Baggies, who we just sold Jeff Hendrick to. Taking on the Baggies, I thought that would be a routine victory in the third round as we're going to defend the FA Cup we won last year. In the end, had to come from behind twice to make sure we'd win it 3-2 and avoid the dreaded cup replay. And following game here, taking on Spurs at St James's. Well, we knew at some point our record would be heavily under threat. We just about survived against Leicester with 2 late goals. Taking on Spurs, we need to do it again. Late on in the game, I thought this was a dive here. Penalty given for Spurs. I thought it was a dive personally. But Heung-min Son converts, the Korean with the goal. Can I just say as well, I really hope he gets back to form next year. I know last season he really struggled under Antonio Conte. I really hope Son gets back to form next year. He's such a great guy, he really is. And such a great signing to be for Spurs for all the years he's been there since the signing from Leverkusen. But anyway, he scored the penalty, and later on in the game we got one back through Joe Willock. But as Jojo would say, it's just a little too late. We lost the game 3-2, and there it is. There it is. Doc's history will not be getting made in this season. It is our first loss in the Premier League, and it's Tottenham Hotspur who end our undefeated season after 22 games. Gutted, absolutely gutted, but now snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity, because following game, Manchester United away, Old Trafford, 1 point between the two teams. Spurs really had to win that game to have any chance of getting back into the title race. They did that, so now they're 11 points behind. They could still possibly catch up. It is still doable. We've seen bigger comebacks before, but I still feel as though it's a 2-horse race for the title from here on out with 16 games to go. So for the following game, our first loss of the season in the league, how would we bounce back in a meeting between the top two in a potential title decider? Manchester United at Old Trafford. We beat them at St James's, and I was not prepared to lose back-to-back. 6 minutes into the game, this is a really nice goal here. Great build-up, attacking down the left-hand side. Alexander Isak goes one-on-one and chips it over David De Gea to give us the very early lead. Yep, 7 minutes in, it's goal number 18 for the Swede, going for that golden boot as we lead by 1. And then just before the half an hour mark here, looking to double our lead. Moussa Diaby takes around Tyrone Malafia, finds Bruno Guimaraes. Lovely flick to Alexander Isak here. The shot cannons off the bar. I thought it crossed the line. But the referee did not get a beep on his watch, so the play continued, and it was still 1-0. That was mighty close there, mighty close. Must have been an inch, still not over the line. So still 1-0. Manchester United looked to respond though. My defence in this first half was really, really strong. I shipped 3 against Spurs. I wasn't going to concede easily in this game. We were still leading by 1. Oh, and this is one of the coolest finishes of this season. I know what you're thinking. Really, Doxy boy? It seemed pretty standard, but you got to see the replay. When you talk about finding the gap, this is finding the gap. Great lethal counter-attack from the Magpies here. Brilliant block, to be fair, by De Gea. And then, Oh, look at that, right between the gap of those two red shirts that are into the bottom corner. I've said before, there's something about stroking the ball in, just guiding it in to the bottom corner, which I absolutely love. No shot power, just done really, really coolly. That was coolness personified from Alexander Isak. He bags his brace, it's 2-0. And after Nick Pope made a great save early on to the second half, the Red Devils ran out of steam and could not find their comeback. Final score at Old Trafford. What a bounce back in the battle of the top two. And it's once again our main man up top that ensures we get the win with both goals. Final score 2-0, and we now take a 4-point lead on the Red Devils with 15 games to go. Destiny in our own hands to win this Premier League title. I said this year, that's my aim. That is my aim. Win that Premier League. And as things stand, we are in the driving seat. So, following game, as we see, Dan Burn is going to leave on a free transfer. Totally fine with that. I said when we saw the player contract expiring emails, Dan Burn, Fabian Schär, Tim Krul, who of course we just signed as well, and also one of our youngsters, so I'm totally fine letting go on a free as well. I was only going to keep one of the two, Dan Burn or Fabian Schär. Burn, granted, he is obviously a Newcastle lad, obviously returning from Brighton, but I still thought I don't think he actually counts towards the homegrown training club standings. I know it has absolutely no bearing on FIFA career mode because of course it's not in the game, homegrown registration rulings, but of course we do say realistically, so of course we do want to keep as homegrown players. So Krul might get a 1-year extension in the summer, I'm not too sure, but for Burn or Schär, I was only going to keep the one. And to be fair, I've been more big on Fabian Schär since this save began. Even though we've now brought in João Palhinha and he's starting alongside Sven Botman in our back four, I like Fabian Schär. So only one was going to stay. Dan Burn's going to go, and he's off to Eintracht Frankfurt in Germany. Very interesting final few years in football for him. Get ready to learn German, buddy, as Dan Burn is off to Eintracht Frankfurt. Anyway, following game, we won in the FA Cup against the Blues. Birmingham City coming to St James's. Rasmus Christensen scored his first goal for the club in a 2-0 win as we're into the last 16 of the FA Cup as we aim to retain it. And heading into the following game, Crystal Palace at St James's. Heading into this one here. Well, we fell behind early in the game, to be fair. Down by a goal. I was thinking, come on, man, seriously. Just beat Manchester United. Massive win. We can't return in the Premier League with a loss here at home to Crystal Palace. So back on the old turns for you-know-who, Alexander Isak. And then 45 minutes in, oh, what a signing this guy's been, man. Honestly, Moussa Diarra, we spent big club record transfer fee to bring him in, worth every single penny. 11 goals in 22. I said what I wanted was a replacement for Miggy, who gets me a few more goals this season. Well, he's already got more than Miggy got all season long last year, with his 11th in 22 in the Premier League. So 2-1, we're in front for the first time. And this was just a game where I felt as though I was going to win this one, even though he fell behind. I knew we'd get the chance, I knew we'd get the goals, but I have to be honest here, I feel as though this season, I've scored some really nice goals. Like, I don't mean to big myself up, blow smoke up my you-know-what, but I feel like I've scored some really nice goals this season, honestly. Chipped the ball in there with some Maximine, and Alexander Isak, one touch on the chest, one first-time volley, chips it over the goalkeeper into the top corner. How nice was that from the tight angle there, as we do come from behind to win the game 3-1. So, yeah, we get the win, we stay clear of the Red Devils, and as deadline day would arrive, I made no moves whatsoever. Finally, Bernardo Silva's moved on now from Man City to PSG. He's finally got his move away. Williams off to Bayern, and Camavinga has also left Real Madrid as well. We did nothing on deadline day, had absolutely no plans whatsoever. Why mess with a winning formula? We are still top, and we now gone 6 points clear as well. And in the FA Cup, as we aim to retain it, we'll be drawn against Barnsley, as the lads from Oakwell will travel to St James's for the last 16 tie, as we aim to retain our FA Cup, win our first ever Premier League, and maybe, just maybe, complete a magic treble. Who knows? But that will end today's episode of the Newcastle United Grimmer, guys. So big thank you for watching. Really hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, then please do drop a like. Much love to you all. Have a fantastic day. And I will see you for next episode featuring our Champions League last 16 tie against a major European team. I'll see you for next episode very soon.